Hello everyone, welcome back to our IGCSE Mathematics past paper walkthrough. I'm Hyan and I'll be your video host, and Varshini will be your contributor who will be explaining you through all the key concepts and key tactics that you need to know while doing the paper Winter 2023, paper 23. So are you ready? Let's get started.
Hi everyone. So today we'll be going through this paper. So let's go to the first question. So question 1, Tara goes on a journey by train and the train leaves at 6:48. The train takes 12 hours and 35 minutes. Find the time when Tara arrives. Okay, so we know that over here 06, this is the 6th hour, and 48 is 48 minutes, and it says the journey takes 12 hours. So to find the final hour, we're just going to do 6 plus 12, and that's 18. We'll just write that here. Okay, and now let's look at the minutes. So we know that the train leaves at 48, okay, and it takes 35 minutes. So if we add 35 to 48, just put that in your calculator, and you should get 83. Okay, but obviously there's no and also there's obviously no like 738, 830, 638, this 683, that's not a thing. Okay, but we do know that 1 hour has 60 minutes. Okay, so if we take away 60 from this number, we can just add it to the hours. So we'll make that 19 hours, and 83 minus 60 is 23. So that gives us 19:23. Or you could also write 7:23 p.m. because 19 minus 12 is 7. But or just to be safe, we can write 19:23. Okay. Question 2. So they've given us 6 numbers: 61, 63, 64, 66, 68, and 69. So from this list, write down a cube number. Okay, so let's think about the cubes we know. I mean, if you're not sure of any cubes, you could always just use your calculator for trial and error. Okay, we know 3 cubed equals 27. We know 4 cubed equals 64. Okay, and we know 5 cubed equals 125. So over here we can clearly see 64. There could be other cube numbers here, but we don't really care about them. We know 64 is for sure a cube number. So our answer is 64. Okay, part B, a prime number. Okay, so we're gonna look at each of these numbers and see if they're divided by, they can be divided by any number other than 1 and the number itself, because we know that that's the indicator for a prime number. So if we look at 61, we can try to divide 61 by 9 or by 13 or by, and we know it's obviously not divisible by 5 or 2. So if you try to divide it, you can see 61 isn't divisible. So 61 is our prime number. And if you're unsure, we can always try with the rest of the numbers. We know 63 is obviously divisible by 3 because 6 plus 3 is divisible by 3. We know 64 has to be divisible by 4 because we know that 4 cubed is 64. We know that 66 is an even number, so it's obviously divisible by 2. 68 is also an even number and divisible by 2. 69, if you add up the digits 6 plus 9, you get 15, which is divisible by 3. So 69 has to be divisible by 3. So just by elimination, you can see that 61 is the prime number. Okay, question 3. The stem and leaf diagram shows the heights in centimeters of some plants, and they've given us the key. 10-4 represents 10.4 centimeters. So, okay, and now they've asked us in part A to find the median height. So to find the median, like the position for the median height, we know it's going to be n plus 1 by 2, and n is the total number of things of heights, for in this case heights that we have total. Okay, so how many heights do we have? We can count them. So the first one, it will be 10.4, then 10.8. So that means we can leave out this column when we're counting. Okay, so let's just count the numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So there are 13. So at the median position, it's going to be 13 plus 1 by 2. That's just 14 by 2, which is 7. So now let's look at the seventh position. So um, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's this one where there's 2. So how do we read this? We know 10 dash 4 equals 10.4. So 12 dash 2 is equal to 12.2. So that's our answer. Um, okay. Um, okay. Work out the mean height. Okay, so how do we calculate the mean? We know the mean is just the sum, and the sign means the sum of x. Let's say where x is all the heights in this case, divided by n, which is the total number. So to find the mean height, okay, we just need to add up all the heights. So let's just write that. So we know, so that's going to be 10.4 plus 10.8 plus 11.1 plus 11.3 plus 11.4 plus 11.6 plus 12.2 plus 12.3 plus 12.6 plus 12.9 plus 13.2 plus 13.6 plus 13.9. So now if you put all of these in your calculator and then divide that whole thing by our total number, which we've already found to be 13. Okay, if you put that in your calculator, you should get 12.1. Okay, so that's our answer, 12.1 centimeters. Okay, question 4. Shubu invests $750 in a savings account for 5 years. 5 years. The account pays simple interest at a rate of 1.8% per year, and calculate the total interest she earns during the 5 years that she put her money in. So we know that the interest, not the total amount, but the total interest for simple interest. And we know over here simple interest. So we have to look at this word. So we know our formula is going to be in terms of simple interest. So we know that simple interest is equal to the amount into the rate into the time divided by 100. Okay, and if the rate is 1.8% per year, then the time will be in years. So we don't need to convert any of our units. So let's just put everything, substitute it in directly into the formula. So that's going to be 750, which is the initial amount, into the rate, which is 1.8. Okay, we don't need to say 1.8 by 100, it's just 1.8. Don't get confused by percent. Okay, it's just 1.8 into 5 and divided by 100. And the reason why we're not taking into account this percentage sign part of 1.8 is because it's already we're already taking that into account when we divide the whole thing by 100. So now if you put that in your calculator, 750 into 1.8 into 5 divided by 100, you should get 67.5, which is our final answer. Okay. Question 5. So they've drawn a triangle. The diagram shows triangle ABC. Okay. M is the midpoint of AC, so that's the midpoint. Triangle ABC is rotated 180 degrees about center M. The image and the original triangle together form a quadrilateral ABCD, and they want us to write the mathematical name of the quadrilateral. Okay, so how do we find the quadrilateral? You should get tracing paper in the exam. So if your tracing paper looks like this, and you keep your first you draw the triangle on your tracing paper, and you put your pen at the midpoint where we want to rotate it about. Then you rotate your tracing paper 180 degrees. So that will be until the tracing paper looks like this, which is the same way but upside down. So if you do that, you should get something that looks like this. Okay, and this is C, will be our new C. Okay, and this is hold on, sorry, my bad. This will be our new C, and this is our B, and this will be our A. So it's the same point. So now, what's the mathematical name of the quadrilateral we just made? We can clearly see that it looks like a parallelogram. My diagram isn't very accurate, but if you do draw it, you should get something that looks more like a parallelogram. So our answer is parallelogram. And how do we know it's not a rectangle? If we drew this over here on the side, it would look something like that. Yeah, it would not have a 90-degree corners. And we can see that over here, 44 and 112. We know that it's not 90-degree corners, so it can't be a rectangle, and it's obviously not a square. Okay, so it's a parallelogram. Part B, find angle BAD. Okay, so they want this angle. Sorry, my bad. They want B A, and they've said that the quadrilateral is ABCD. So that means A, B, C, and this over here, which I've written as B, is actually D. Okay, so they want BAD, which is this angle we can see because it's along that line. Okay, let's get rid of this. See, okay, yeah. This is D. Okay, so how do we find that angle? We already know this angle because we know angles in a triangle always add up to 180. So this angle BAC, let's write down BAC, is going to be equal to 180 minus the other two angles, 44 plus 112. 44 plus 112. If you put that in your calculator, and don't forget to put the brackets, of course. 180 minus 44 minus 112, you should get 24. So we know BAC is 24. And we also know over here, we also do know this angle, okay, because we know that it's just C. And over here, we can see C is 44. So this has to be 44. So that means the total angle is going to be 24 plus 44. Okay, and if you put that in your calculator or do it mentally, you should get 68, which is our answer, 68 degrees. Okay. Question 6. Rama asks a group of students how they traveled to school, and the table shows the probability of how a student chosen at random travels to school. So for bus, it's 0.4, for walk, it's 0.32, and for car, it's 0.17. And they want us to find other. So they said complete the table. So we know that for like a set of for a set of things, that the total probability the students walk to school is going to have to be 1 because they always walk to school. Okay, so that means the total is 1. That means 0.4 plus 0.32 plus 0.17 plus x, let's keep this x for now, is going to equal 1. Okay, this here, x is going to equal 1. So to find x, we just subtract the rest of them from 1. 1 minus 0.4 minus 0.32 minus 0.17. Okay, so you put that in your calculator. 2 minus 0.17, you should get 0.11. Okay, which is our answer for other. Okay, there are 1,800 students at the school. Find the expected number of students that walk to school. So we know the expected number of students is just going to be the probability of something, okay, into the total. And that's going to give you how many students are expected to do something, okay? And we want the expected number of students that walk, okay? And we also know the probability of walk is 0.32. So then we're just going to multiply 0.32 into 1,800, okay? Because that means 0.32 out of 1,800 students are going to walk. I mean, the expected number. So if you put that in your calculator, you should get 576. Okay, so 576 students, and that's our answer. Um, Question 7. Without using a calculator, okay, work out 1 5 by 6 divided by 11 by 15. So show all your working and give your answer as a mixed number in its simplest form. Okay, mixed number. So first off, we can see that this is 1 5 by 6 not is a mixed number, and to divide and multiply things, especially without using a calculator, we need to write them both as improper fractions. So to write 1 5 by 6 as an improper fraction, it's just going to be the whole number into the denominator plus the numerator. Okay, so that's 1 into 6 plus 5 divided by the denominator. Okay, so if we do that, just 6 plus 5. Okay, which is going to give us 11 by 6, 11 by 6. So that's our first number. So 11 by 6. And now that is being divided by 11 by 15. So we also know when we divide fractions, all we have to do is we change the division sign into a multiplication sign, and we flip the second number. Okay, we reciprocal it. Okay, so that will become 11 by 6 into, we made this into a multiplication sign, and now we flip 11 by 15 and make it 15 by 11. So now you can just put this in your calculator, or we also know that you can just cross out the 11s because they're coming on both the numerator and the denominator. Okay, so we're going to get 15 by 6. Now they want us to write it as a mixed number. Okay, and right now it's an improper fraction. So to write it as a mixed number, we need to divide it and also show them how we're doing that. So 15 divided by 6. Okay, so 6 is going to go twice into 15. That'll give us 12, which is going to give us, and if we subtract them, that'll be 3. So now that we have it in this format, we leave it like this. We don't divide it any further. And we know that this is going to be the whole number. Okay, this is going to be the numerator, and this is going to be the denominator. So that's just going to be 2, 3 by 6. Okay, and we also know that 3 by 6 is not in simplest form because we can further divide 3 by 6. So we also know that it's just going to be 1 by 2. Okay, because 3 goes twice into 6. Or you could just put in your calculator if it's a bigger number. You could always put in your calculator and it'll tell you the simplest fraction ratio. So now we have our answer, which is 2, 1 by 2. Okay, question 8. Find the highest common factor of 48 and 80. So to do this, we need the factors of both 48 and 80 in prime numbers. So first, let's take 48. Let's draw a tree diagram. So we can only divide 48 by prime numbers. So we're just going to, which is essentially 1, 2, sorry, not 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, etc. So first, let's divide it by 2. 2, because you can clearly see that it goes, okay? So 48 by 2 is just 24. Again, let's divide 24 by 2. Okay, and 24 by 2 is 12. And again, we can divide 12 by 2 to get 6. And again, we can divide 6 by 2 to get 3. And we know 3 divided to get 1, it's going to be 3 divided by 3, and which is 1. So we stop when we get 1. Okay, so now let's write 48 as a product of its prime numbers. So it's going to be 2 into 2 into 2 into 2 into 3. So now let's do it for 80. 80. Okay, 80 by 2 is going to give us 40. 40 by 2 will be 20. 20 by 2 is 10. 10 by 2 is 5. And 5 by 5 is 1. So we can stop at 1. So now let's write 80 as a product of its prime numbers. It's going to be 2 into 2 into 2 into 2 into 5. So now we circled the common ones. We can clearly see 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. Okay, so we can see that 2 is coming commonly 4 times. So our highest common factor is just going to be 2 to the power 4. And if you do that in your calculator, you should get 16. So 16 is our answer. Okay, question 9. P equals 2WY squared divided by 3. Find the positive value of y when P is equal to 108 and W is equal to 8. So let's just substitute in the numbers that we have. So we know P is equal to 108. So in place of P, we're going to write 108. 108 equals, okay, we know W, so 2 times W, and W is 8. So it's going to be 2 into 8 y squared divided by 3. Now, let's make y the subject of the formula. Okay, so first let's get rid of the 3 on the denominator by multiplying both sides into 3. Okay, and now let's get rid of the 2 into 8 on the numerator by dividing both sides by 2 into 8. Okay, because it's being multiplied into y squared, so instead we divide it. 2 into 8. So now let's just calculate this number in our calculator. Okay, get y squared equals, so if you put this number in your calculator, 3 into 108 divided by 16, you should get 81 by 4. And we also know this is y squared, not y. So how do we get rid of the square? We take the square root of both sides. We take the square root of y squared, that will become y. And we take the square root of this. Okay, so what is the square root of 81 by 4? We know that for a fraction, x by y, the square root is going to be the root of x divided by the root of y. We can use that same rule for the root of 81 by 4. We know 9 squared is 81. So the root of 81 is going to, so we can firstly, let's write this as root of 81 by root of 4. Okay, we know 9 squared is 81, so the root of 81. And we also know that over here, it's not always plus, it's plus minus. Okay, because minus 9 into minus 9 could be 81, and so could plus 9 into plus 9 for this one as well. Okay, so on the top we get plus minus 9 divided by plus minus 2, or we can rewrite this as plus minus 9 by 2, because we know that 2 squared equals 4. Or you could just put this in your calculator to get the root of 81 and the root of 4. Okay, but we also know that they've asked us to find the positive value of y. So we ignore the negative value and we just take 9 by 2, which is also equal to 4.5. Okay, question 10. So they've given us vector AB equals 7 by not by, but 7 in the x-axis and minus 3 in the y-axis. So how would this look if we want to visualize this? Okay, we know that, let's say this x-axis, the y-axis. So it's going to move 7 to the right in the x-axis. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it's going to move minus 3 in the y-axis. So 3 would be up, so minus 3 is going to be down. So 1, 2, 3. So over here, our vector would look something like this. Okay, but now they want us to find 3 into our vector. So we know 3 into AB is going to be 3 into 7 and 3 into minus 3. Okay, so that's going to be 3 into 7 and 3 into minus 3. Okay, so if you do that, okay, that's going to give us 21 and minus 9. So even though these numbers are multiples of each other, we can't divide them or cancel them out. It's just a regular fraction, okay? So we leave this as 21 and minus 9. Okay, part B, find AB, and they've given us the sign, and we know when they put these two lines on either side of the vector, sorry, my bad, they want us to find the magnitude of the vector. So to find the magnitude of AB, we also know there's a formula to find the magnitude of AB, okay, which is going to be the root of y squared plus x squared, or x squared plus y squared, and that's just the two components of the vector. So if you don't know why this makes sense, it makes sense because as we've drawn in this vector diagram, we know it's moving this much in the x direction, this much in the y direction, and it's also a right angle triangle. So it's the exact same concept as the Pythagoras theorem. So now if we plug in our values of A and B, it's going to be 7 squared plus minus 3 whole squared. So you can just put that in your calculator and you should get root 58, which also equals 7.615 something. But remember, we need to round it off to 3 significant figures. So we round the 1 up because 5 means it needs to be rounded up. So it's going to be 7.62. Okay, question 11. Okay, a bronze sphere has radius 3.6 centimeters and the density of bronze is 8.05 grams per centimeter cubed. Find the mass of the sphere and give your answer in kilograms correct to the nearest gram, even though they've given us this density in grams. Okay, so they've also given us the volume of the sphere, and they've also given us how to find density. Okay, so we know density is mass by volume, and we do have we don't have the mass, and we don't have we need to find the mass, but we can also rearrange this formula. Let's rearrange this. So if we have density equals mass by volume, to find mass, we just to get rid of volume on the denominator, we multiply both sides by volume. So mass equals density into volume. Okay, so we do have the density over here, but we don't have the volume. Okay, so we need to calculate the volume of the sphere using this formula. And we have the radius, so we can just plug in all the values. So volume is equal to 4 by 3 pi into r cubed. And we know r over here is 3.6 centimeters. So we're going to say 3.6 cubed. Okay, so now if you just plug this right into your calculator, and don't forget, use the value of pi in your calculator. Don't use 3.14 or anything else, because that's going to give you an inaccurate value. Okay, so we want the exact value. So you put this in your calculator, you should get the volume as 195.432 something. Okay, so always write when you're working, always write it to as many significant figures as you can, or at least 2 or 3 decimal places, because we want the value to be more accurate. Okay, so now that we have the volume, we need to find the mass. So we know that mass equals density into volume, and we know density. Okay, so mass equals density into volume equals, and we know our density is 8.05 okay, in grams per centimeter cubed into 195.432 centimeter cubed. So we also know that when we do multiply these, the centimeter cube and the centimeter cube are going to cancel out. Um, and it's going to give us our value in grams. Okay, so let's calculate our value in grams. So all you need to do is multiply the value in your calculator. Try not to round it off. So multiply that into 8.05, and you should get 1573.23, something similar to that. Okay, so now that we have that, we know that's in grams. Okay, so 1573.23 grams, and we also know that 1 gram is going to equal to so we also know 1000 grams is 1 kilogram, and so 1 gram is just going to be 1 by 1000 kilograms. Okay, so and we know 1 gram is 1 by 1000 kilograms, so 1573 grams is going to be 1573 divided by 1000 kilograms. Okay, so now all we have to do is divide the value in your calculator by 1000, and you should get the value in kilograms. You should get 1.5. And remember, wait, before we divide it, let us remember what they said. Correct to the nearest gram. So as it's already in grams, okay, let's correct it to the nearest gram. So we can forget about the 2, 3, because we don't want it in decimal places. We just want it to the nearest gram. That's just 1573. Okay, so all you have to do is divide 1573 by 1000 and just put that entire value. Okay, so you should get 1.573 kilograms. And that's our answer. Okay, question 12. Oliver sent 22% more messages in June than in May, and he sent 305 messages in June. Find how many more messages he sent in June than in May. Okay, so first let's find how many messages he sent in May. Okay, so we know that he sent 22% more, and we know that for a percentage increase, it's the amount into 1 plus the rate or slash the increase by 100. Okay, so, and we also know that he sent 22% more, okay, not of, but more messages in June than in May. Okay, so May, okay, into 1 plus r by 100 is going to give us the messages in June. And how do we know that it's the increase from May? We know that he sent 22 more messages in June than in May. So that means May increased is going to give us the messages in June. Okay, so, and we also know the messages in June. Let's write this, 305. And we also know the rate is 22%. So we can write R as 22. So now to find the messages in May, of course, we just need to divide both sides by the multiplier, which is this. So let's do 305 divided by 1 plus 22 by 100. And don't forget the brackets and everything when you use your calculator and put this in. So 305 divided by 1.22. And that equals 250. Okay? But 250 isn't our answer. We want how many more messages he sent in June than in May. Okay? So that means we more messages in June than in May. So we just need to subtract, okay, 305 minus 250. So that, if you put that in your calculator or do it manually, that's just 55. So we sent 55 more messages in June than May. Okay, question 13. The graph of y equals 2x plus 1 is drawn on the grid. Okay, so they've drawn us the graph. Okay, and by shading the unwanted regions of the grid, find and label the region R which satisfies the inequalities. And remember, they want us to find the unwanted regions. Okay, so they've already drawn 2x plus 1. So we know this line is 2x plus 1. Okay, and we want y to be greater than 2x plus 1. So either we shade this side of the grid or we shade this side of the grid. So to find which side we shade, we need to shade for this line. We take a random point. Let's take minus 1 comma 1. Okay, and let's substitute in the values. Okay, so y greater than equal to 2x plus 1. So, and over here we're taking the point minus 1 comma 1. Okay, so 1 greater than equal to 2 into minus 1 plus 1. So is 1 greater than equal to 2 into minus 1 plus 1? So if you do 2 into minus 1 plus 1 in your calculator, you get minus 1. And so this statement that you made is true. 1 is greater than 2 into minus 1 plus 1. Okay, so that means we want this entire region. This is the necessary region. Okay, so let's call this. So that means we shade this region. We don't want this region. Okay, and when you shade, make sure to do it neatly so the examiner knows exactly what you mean to shade. Okay. Um. 1 sec. Yeah. Um. Okay. The next equation we have here is y greater than equal to 1. Y greater than equal to 1. Okay, so let's draw the graph of y equals 1. So that's just going to be 1 along the y-axis. So over here is 1 in the y-axis. So if we take the graph, it's just going to be this line. Let's use a different color. Hold on. Wait, or not. Okay, fine, that's fine. So this is our line of y equals 1, and we want y to be greater than 1, greater than equal to 1. Sorry, there's a plane. Yeah, okay, so we want y to be greater than 1, so that means everything above this line we want. Okay, that also means we don't want anything below this line. Okay, so let's shade all of that. Okay, for the next equation, 4x plus 3y smaller than 12. Let's rearrange this to make y the subject of the formula. So we just need to subtract 4x from both sides. Okay, so 3y smaller than 12 minus 4x. Now to get rid of the 3 in front of y, we divide both sides by 3, since y is being multiplied into 3. And we can also simplify this. Y smaller than, and we know 12 by 3 is 4, and minus 4 by 3x. Okay, so now we just need to draw the graph. Sorry, wait, my bad. That's y smaller than 4 minus 4x, 4 by 3x. And if we rewrite this, it's also, and not, so I mean, to find this value, to find the graph of this, we need to draw the graph of y equals 4 minus 4 by 3x. We can also rewrite this as minus 4 by 3x plus 4. So we know this is in the same format as y equals mx plus c. And we know that c is the y-intercept. So the y-intercept over here is going to be 4. 4. 4. And now to find any two values on the graph of this, let's just make y and x. Okay, so let's just draw this graph. Okay, so let's take let's find at x equals minus 5. Okay, so when x equals minus 5, y is going to equal minus 4 by 3 into minus 5 plus 4. So if you do that on your calculator, into minus 5 plus 4. Okay, so that's going to be 10.66 something. If we look over here, 10.66 isn't on the graph. Okay, so let's it's going to be somewhere up here, but like way up. Okay, so let's instead find at this point. Okay, sorry, we don't know if it's there, but let's find it at the point x equals minus 1. That's going to be minus 1 into minus 4 by 3 plus 4. Put that in your calculator, it's 5.33 something. So that also is above the grid. It's going to be somewhere here. Okay. So instead, let's find a value where we have some exact values. Let's find it at 2 on this point. Okay. So we put 2. So we do or let's yeah. Okay. Wait, hold on. Yeah, okay. So minus 4 divided by 3 into 2 plus 4 is going to give us 4 by 3. Or we can write this as 1.33. Okay, so that value over here at minus 2 is going to be somewhere above 1 over here. Okay, let's instead find a different value. Let's find it at let's find an exact value so we can plot the graph. Okay, so we need a value that divided by 3 is going to give us a non-decimal value. So we do know that 4 into 3 by 3. So let's take the value of x equals 3. Okay, let's take x equals 3. So now let's do 3 into minus 4 divided by 3 plus 4, and that's just 0. Okay, so at 3, y equals 0. So it's going to be over here. It's not very visible. Let me use a different color. One sec. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah. So if we do draw our line, remember we need to connect these 2 points. Okay, so it's gonna look somewhat like this. And of course, we need to connect. So there we go. And so remember, now let's find what part of the line we want. Okay. Okay, so we know that we don't want anything on this side. Okay, so now if we take any point on either side of the line, we could take this point 1 comma 5. Let's take 1 comma 5. Let's substitute in our values. And also when we draw this line, it's not going to be a straight line. Rather, it's going to be dotted. Okay, and how do we know that? So it should look somewhat like that. Make sure you use a scale when you're drawing it in the exam. And how do we know it's going to be dotted? It's because smaller than and not smaller than equal to, which means that it doesn't include any of the values, so it's going to be dotted. Yeah, okay. So now let's substitute 1 and 5 into our equation. So 5 is 5 smaller than minus 4 by 3 into 1 plus 4. So if we do minus 4 by 3 into 1 plus 4, we should get 2.66. and we know that 5 is smaller. Okay, so that means um, um that means that sorry, 5 is not smaller. I don't know what happened. Yeah, but 5 is obviously greater than 2.66. Okay, so that means that this inequality is false, and that means that we want everything, that we don't want anything on this side of the line where we chose our point. So now we're going to shade everything on this side of the line. Okay, and we can see the region unshaded is over here. That also includes this region. Okay, so there we have, and we've labeled R, which satisfies these inequalities. And when you draw your lines, make sure you draw them straight. And yeah, that's it for this question. Okay, question 14. The box and whisker plot shows information about the mass in kg of some parcels. They've shown us the box and whisker plot. Part A, find the mass of the heaviest parcel. Okay, so we can clearly see that the mass is ranging from this value all the way to this value, and this value being 1 point something and this value being 3 point something. So we know that this value is the heaviest value. And also in our box and whisker plots, this last line is the last and the least value, so this value will be the heaviest value. Okay, so now how do we find this value? We know that 10 boxes equals 0.5, okay, because 3 to 3.5. So one box is going to be 0.5 by 10, which is 0.05. So that also means two boxes equals 0.1. So now let's find what box this value is at. So let's count from 2. So 3.1, 3.2, and 3.4. Wait, hold on, sorry. 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. So the mass is 3.3. Okay. Find the interquartile range. So we know that for a box and whisker plot, the interquartile range is just the box. Okay, the range inside this box. So now let's find that range. So that's from this value to this value. Okay, so first this value, so if we count upwards from 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, and 1.85. So 1.85 is the smallest value in the range. And the last value, let's count upwards from 2. Going to be 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4. Okay, 2.4 is the heaviest in the interquartile range. Now to find the range, we just need to find it's just the max minus min. Okay, so that is 2.4 minus 1.85. And if you put that in your calculator or do it, always put in your calculator to recheck and make sure you're not making any mistakes. You should get 0.55, which is our answer. Okay. Question 15. So t equals root of 3d minus e. Rearrange the formula to make d the subject. Okay, so we want d the subject. So first, let's get rid of this annoying square root sign. So how do we get rid of square root? We square both sides. Okay, so that means the square root is going to go away. So that's going to become t squared equals 3d minus e. And we want d the subject. Okay, so let's isolate d. Let's move e to the other side. How do we do that? We make it positive and add it to both sides. So t squared plus e equals 3d. And now, of course, to get rid of the multiplier, we divide it. So we divide both sides by 3. And that is just t squared plus e by 3. So that's our answer. T squared plus plus e by 3. Okay, question 16. A cylinder with height 12.5 centimeters has a curved surface area of 105 pi centimeters squared. Calculate the volume of the cylinder. Okay, so we know that the volume of a cylinder is just pi r squared h. And we also know that we do have the height, but we don't have r. How do we find r? They've also given us the surface area. So using this, we can calculate r, and then we substitute it into the volume formula. So let's calculate r. So we know the curved surface area. So if we draw a cylinder over here, you know the curved surface area, okay? It's not going to be this top or the bottom part. We just want this in-between part. Okay, and the in-between part is nothing but a bunch of all of these circles. So it's nothing but basically it's if you look at it, it's nothing but the circumference of the circle into the height. So that's just going to be 2 pi r h. So we know that the surface area, 2 pi, or you could just memorize the formula. 2 pi r h equals 105 pi centimeters squared. Right, so straight away we can see that pi comes on both sides of the equation, so we can cancel it out. And we also know that r, we know the value of r, it's 12.5. Or we don't really need to calculate, we don't need to substitute in r, because actually yeah, we do, never mind. 12.5. So 2r into 12.5 equals 105. So let's make r the subject of the formula. Let's get rid of the multipliers over here, which is 2 and 12.5. So let's divide it. 105 divided by 2 into 12.5. So you put that in your calculator. You should get 4.2. 4.2 is equal to r. So now we do know the volume of a cylinder. Let's just substitute in r. Okay, so v equals pi into r squared, which is going to be 4.2 squared, into h, which we know to be 12.5. So now if you put that in your calculator, 4.2 squared, and remember again, use the pi button in your calculator, because that's going to give us the most accurate value, which we want. Okay, so you should get your volume as, one sec, 692.7. That's going to be 692.72. But remember, we need to write this off to 3 significant figures. So 2 is going to round up, and that's going to be 693 centimeter cubed. Okay, question 17. Simplify, and they've given us some number here. So we know, first of all, that we can see a power outside the brackets. So that means everything inside the brackets needs to be multiplied into that power. Okay, so if we expand this out, that's going to be, not multiplied, but to that power. So 64 to the power 2 by 3 into y to the power 27 to the power, y to the power 27 to the power 2 by 3. So first let's simplify 64 to the power 2 by 3. So if you're taking the exam past 2025, you won't have a calculator to do this. So the easy way to do this is, we know that it's just going to be, we can also rewrite 64 to the power 2 by 3 as 64 cube root squared. Okay, and first let's find the cube root of 64. We know that the cube root of 64 is 4, literally from the first question, second question in the paper. But if you're confused, you could always double check. Okay, so that's just going to be 4 squared, which is 16. Because once we take away the cube root, we only have the square left. Or you could just put 64 to the power 3 by 3 in your calculator, and you get 16. Okay, now this is multiplied into y to the power 27 to the power 2 by 3. And we know that when we have n to the power x to the power y, it's the same as n to the power x into y. Okay, so this y is just going to equal y to the power 27 into 2 by 3. And 27 times 2 by 3 is nothing but 27 divided by 3 into 2. 27 divided by 3 is 9, and 9 into 2 is 18. Okay, so that is just going to give us y to the power 18 equals y to the power 18. So now that we have our final thing, let's rewrite it. So we know it's 16y to the power times y to the power 18, which is the same as 16y to the power 18. Okay, the part B, simplify. They've given us this fraction. Okay, so straight away we can see that the denominator, okay, looks suspiciously like a squared minus b squared. And we know from the formula that a squared minus b squared equals a minus b into a plus b. Okay, so now, ignoring that, we know that from this x squared minus 25, we know that 25 is nothing but 5 squared. So we can rewrite this bottom part as x squared minus 5 squared. And now we can use the formula a squared minus b squared equals a minus b into a plus b. Now we can use this formula to tell us that this is nothing but x minus 5 into x plus 5. So rewriting the entire fraction, we're going to get x minus 5 on the top divided by x minus 5 into x plus 5. Okay, and we also can see two repeating things, x minus 5 here in the numerator, which also comes in the denominator. That means we can cancel them both out because we're dividing it. Okay, so if we divide it, it's just going to be 1. And remember, that doesn't give us 0 on the numerator, that gives us 1 because it's being multiplied into 1. Because if it is being multiplied into 0, that would just be 0, which is not what the fraction is. So that will just, if we cancel these out, that's just going to be 1 by x plus 5, which is our answer. Okay. Question 18. F is proportional to the product of m and a. So we know that by the sign proportional, that means F equals k times the product of m and a, which is m into a. And if it said it was not proportional, if it said it was inversely proportionate, then we do k divided by m into a. But this is proportional, so it's just k into m into a. So now they want us to calculate the percentage change in F when m is increased by 40% and a is decreased by 15%. Okay, so now we can ignore this k because we know k is not changing, it's always being multiplied into k. Okay, so now let's see what's going to happen to m and a. So if m is increased by 40%, we also know percentage increase equals 1 plus the rate by 100, and percentage decrease equals 1 minus the rate by 100. So now we know that m is getting increased by 40%. That's going to be m into 1 plus and we know it's 40, so the rate is 40 by 100. And we know a is going to become a into 1 minus, and over here it says 15%. So 15 by 100. So now, if we put these two values that we calculate in our calculator, 1 plus 40 by 100, that is nothing but 1.4. It's going to be 1.4 m. Okay, don't forget that percentage increases this into the amount and decreases this into the amount. Okay, so and for a, Okay, that's going to be nothing but 0.85a. Okay, and of course k is not changing. So the new value of f, say f dash, okay, is going to be equal to k into 1.4m into 0.85a. Okay, and what is the percentage change in f? Okay, it's obviously the same value of f, except because there's k and there's m and there's a, except there's this 1.4 into 0.85. Let's multiply 1.4 into 0.85, and we get 1.19. Okay, so we get f dash equals 1.19 into the original. Okay, and we know 1.19 is the increase. Okay, so we know, let me just hold on, let me clear up the space a little. Okay, okay, yeah, like I said, we know f dash is going to be equal to 1.19 of the original. And we know 1.19 is the percentage increase, but they just want the change, okay? So they just want the rate. So we know 1 plus r by 100 equals 1.19. Okay, so let's just make r the subject of the formula. That means we just do 1.19 minus 1 divided by 100. Okay, to get rid of the 1 minus 1. Sorry, and into 100. And that is just 19, which we can clearly see 1.19 minus 1 will be 0.19 into 100 equals 19. So that means, and we don't even need to use this formula. We can clearly see that 1.19, if you just look at it, it's just 1 plus 0.19, and 0.19 is 19 by 100. And yeah, so you can tell it's just 19%. Okay, question 19. Calculate the obtuse angle PRQ. Okay, so we have two sides here, 18 and 13.5, and we have one angle, so we can use the sine rule. We know sine A by the opposite side is going to give us sine B by the opposite side for a triangle. Okay, and we have over here, we have P is 42 degrees. Okay, so sine 42 divided by the opposite side. The opposite side of P is clearly this side. So divided by 13.5 equals sine, and we can use this angle that we want to calculate, PRQ. Okay, because P, R, and Q. Okay, sine, we'll say PRQ divided by the opposite side, which is this, so 18. Okay, so now let's use let's just cross multiply these. Okay, since it's a fraction. So that means 18 into sine 42 is going to give us 13.5 into sine PRQ. Okay, so 18 sine 42 equals 13.5 sine, we'll just call it x for now, and we want sine x to be the subject of the formula, so we're just going to divide this 13.5. Okay, so now let's calculate that in our calculator. So 18 into 18 into sine 42 divided by 13.5. And so you're going to get sine x equals 0.892. Remember, we want x, so we just do sine inverse. So in our calculator, we do sine inverse of 0.892. And we put that in your calculator. You should get 63.147. Okay, something. Okay, but before we go on, they want the obtuse angle. They don't want the acute angle. And we can see it's below 90, so it's obviously an acute angle. Okay, so now let's go back and let's look at our unit circle. Okay, if we look at our unit circle, our angle is somewhere over here, 63. It's in the acute sector. Okay, so what is the other angle that it could be where it's obtuse and still positive? It needs to be somewhere in the sine sector. Okay, and we know that this line is 180. Okay, so that means, and we also know that this angle, if you just calculate it, is going to be the same as, it's going to be the same as this angle. Let me redraw that. So this angle is going to be the same as this angle due to our opposite angles rule. Okay, so that means to find the obtuse angle, which is this angle, we just need to do 180 minus our angle, which is 63.147 something. Okay, if you're getting confused by the unit circle, you could always just memorize that for sine the rule is just 180 minus the angle to find the obtuse angle. Okay, so if you put that in our calculator, 180 minus 63.1477 something, you get 116.9 if you round it off. And remember, for angles, we always round them off to 100, we always round them off to one decimal place, not to three significant figures. So our answer is 116.9. Okay. Question 20. So they've given us some equation and they've said it's equivalent to some other equation they've given us. So find the value of each a, b, and c. Okay, so let's just expand the equation, okay, by multiplying out everything. So first let's multiply x plus a into x plus 2. So we know that x is going to multiply into x is going to multiply into 2, and a is also going to multiply into x. Wait, let me yeah. So x is going to multiply into x, and x is going to multiply into 2, and a is going to multiply into x, and a is going to multiply into 2. Okay, so x into x is x squared, and x into 2 is 2x, plus a into x is ax, and a into 2 is just 2a. So now this full thing is being multiplied by 2x plus 3. Okay, so now let's expand this. So we know for this, each of these values are going to multiply into 2x and into 3. Okay, so first let's go with x squared. So x squared into 2x is going to be 2 into x cubed. Okay, 2x into 2x is going to, so now let's do x cubed into 3. So x squared into 3. X squared into 3 is just going to be 3x squared. Okay, so now let's take 2x into 2x. We know that just 2 into 2 is 4, and x into x is x squared. Okay, now let's do 2x into 3. We know that just 2 into 3, which is 6x. Yeah. Okay, so now let's do ax into 2x. Okay, so a into 2 is just 2a, and x into x is x squared. So that's going to be 2ax squared. Okay, and ax into 3 is just a into 3 into x, which we can't simplify any further. That's just going to be 3ax. And now lastly, 2a. 2a into 2x is going to be 2 into 2 is 4, and a into x is ax. So that is going to be 4ax. And 2a into 3, 2 into 3 is just 6. So that's just going to be 6a. Okay, so now let's simplify this whole thing that we've gotten over here. Okay, so since 2x cubed is the only x cubed term, we have to leave it like that, 2x cubed. We can also double check and see in our answer there's a 2x cubed. Okay, so now let's take 3x squared. we can see 4x squared is also an x squared term. Okay, so that means we can add 3x squared to 4x squared, and 3 plus 4 is 7. So that's going to give us 7x squared. Okay, now let's look at the ax squared term. We clearly, it doesn't have another ax squared term. Okay, but we know that 2a is we can add that to 3 plus 4. Okay, because it's like if we have 2 plus 3 plus 4ax, we know that we're adding the coefficients 2 plus 3 plus 4a. Okay, so now we can add 2a to our 7x squared, 2a to 7. Okay, so essentially, let's erase 7. Okay, so essentially that would just be 7 plus 2a into x squared. Okay, and now let's go for our next term, which is just x. So 6x, 3ax, 4ax. So we can see 3ax and 4ax. Let's add them first. We know 3 plus 4 is 7. So these two would just be 7ax. And now we want to add 7ax to 6x. So again, we can just add the coefficients since the x terms are the same. That would just be 6 plus 7a. 6 plus 7a, and the term is x, and plus the last term, of course, which is 6a. Now let's compare this to our original equation, 2x cubed plus bx squared plus cx minus 18. So we can see that the last term, 6a, our last term is 6a, and their last term is minus 18. Don't forget the minus, by the way. It's very important. So we know that our 6a is equal to their 18. So if you write that over here, minus 18 equals minus 18, we can find a, okay, by, of course, dividing both sides by the multiplier, which is 6 to isolate a, and minus 18 by 6. If you put that in your calculator or do it manually, it's just minus 3. So we know a is equal to minus 3. And now that we have this, we can find the other terms, okay? We know b is the coefficient of the x squared term. Our coefficient of x squared is 7 plus 2a. So b is going to be 7 plus 2a, which over here is nothing but 7 plus 2 into minus 3, which we've calculated a to be. Okay, so if you put that in your calculator, 2 into minus 3 plus 7, that is going to give us 1. So b is 1. We can also write a over here, which we found to be minus 3. And lastly, we have c. Okay, we know, let's look at their c term. Their c term is the coefficient of x. So our c term is our coefficient of x, which is 6 plus 7a. Okay, so 6 plus 7 into this, and of course a is minus 3. So if we put that in our calculator, 7 to minus 3 plus 6, we get minus 15. So that is our c term. Okay, question 21. So it's a cuboid, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and AB equals 14, BC equals 5, CG equals 8, and M is the midpoint of HG. So this is the midpoint. Okay, calculate BM. So they want us to calculate this length. Okay, so we know that if AB is 14, HG also has to be 14. And so if M is the midpoint, that means it equally splits it up into 14 by 2 on this side, 14 by 2 on this side, and 14 by 2 is 7. Okay, so we can just write HM is 7 and MG is 7. Okay, and now if we want to find BM, draw a line down over here, a line across. So if we made this into a little cuboid of its own, okay, across the top, FG, okay, let me uncomplicate it. Okay, we know this is just going to be the same as FG, okay, which is the same as BC, so it's 5, okay, and we know downwards, okay, our length downwards from here to the bottom is going to be the same as AE, okay, which is the same as GC, which is 8. And lastly, okay, we also know to calculate this, the last thing we need is this length, or rather we can say this length. Okay, and we also know that since M is the midpoint of HG, this part is also going to be the midpoint of AB. So that means it's equally going to split A and B into 7 and 7. So this is 7. And now we know to calculate the diagonal of something of a cuboid, we know it just the square root of the base squared plus the height squared plus the width squared. Okay, so now to calculate BM, we have the base, the base, which is 7, the height, which is 8, and um and lastly the width, which is 5. Yeah. Oh, sorry, we can say instead of base we can say length. That's a little confusing. So now let's just substitute in all our values. Okay, the length is 7 squared plus the height, which is 8 squared, plus the width, which is 5 squared. So if you put that right into your calculator, you should get 11.74, which rounds off to 3 significant figures, which we should round off 3 significant figures. So we round it down because it's 4, so 11.7. In your answer, you can always, in the working, you can always put more than 4 to 5 significant figures. You should always, so the examiner knows exactly. Okay, part B, calculate the angle that BM makes with the base ABCD. Okay, so this is the line BM that we just found, and so if this is the line, we want the angle between this line and this base. Okay, so that would mean we don't want this angle, okay, but rather we want this angle with the base. So if we were to draw a line like that and complete the triangle, and this being the right angle, we want this angle. Okay, so we've already calculated BM to be 11.7 centimeters. And okay, so let's redraw the triangle over here. So this is the angle we want. This is BM. Oh, sorry, it's the other way. BM, and we know BM is 11.7, and we also know the vertical from M down to the base is the same as G to C, so it's 8. Okay, and now we can use sine theta because we know that for all right angle triangles, SOHCAHTOA, which means sine theta equals opposite by the hypotenuse. So if this is sine theta, so sine theta is equal to opposite by adjacent, and we know our opposite over here, the side opposite to the angle, is 8, and the hypotenuse of the triangle we can see is BM, so it's 11.7. So now to find theta, we're just going to do sine inverse of 8 by 11.7. Theta equals sine inverse of 8 by 11.7. So you just need to put that in your calculator. Yeah. And you should get Hold on one sec. Yeah, you should get 43.1 or something similar. There's a range in the marking scheme, I think. But I got 43.13, which we round off to three significant figures always. 43.1. Okay, question 22. So it's a different part. Find the coordinates of the point where the line 4x plus y equals 9 intersects the curve y plus x squared equals 5. So how do we do this? All we need to do is we know that we make y the subject of this formula. Okay, first let's make y the subject of both formulas. Okay, so for this formula, all we need to do is move 4x to the other side and then it will become negative. So y equals 9, and instead of y plus 4x, we're going to take away 4x from both sides, so minus 4x. Now for the other one, to make y the subject of this formula, it's going to become y, and then we'll move x squared to the other side. So y equals 5 minus x squared. So now that we have two equations for y, we can equate this equation to this equation, okay? Because they're both equal to the same thing, so that means they have to be equal. Okay, so 9 minus 4x equals 5 minus x squared. Okay, so now let's put everything on one side of the equation. Okay, so we'll move everything to the left side. So first we move x squared. Okay, so since it's negative, it's going to become positive on the other side. So it's going to become x squared plus 9 minus 4x. And we also move 5 to the other side and make it negative. Minus 5 equals 0. Don't forget there's something on the other side of the equation. Now let's simplify this. We can get rid of 9 and minus 5 by adding them together and make them one term. Okay, so 9 minus 5 is 4. So that is going to become x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 0. Okay, now from here, you can't just put the quadratic equation in your calculator, you need to show them the working that you do. So either you can factorize it or you can use the quadratic formula. So I'm going to factorize it because it's easier. So first we just need to split the middle term up so that it multiplies, or let's use the quadratic formula actually. Okay, so we know that x on x equals b squared minus 4a. Sorry, wait, my bad. X equals minus b plus minus root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So now we just need to substitute everything in our formula. The coefficient of x squared is a, the coefficient of x is b, and the last term without the x is c. Now we substitute everything in our formula. It's going to be minus 4, don't forget the minus 4, plus minus the root of b squared, which is minus 4 whole squared, minus 4 into 1, because we can see that there's no coefficient of x squared, which doesn't make it 0, it makes it 1, because 1 into x squared, okay, into c, which is 4. Okay, now we divide this whole thing by 2 into 1. Now we can use we can use our calculator to give us the value to make sure we're not making any mistakes, because all we need to do is show them that we have done the working. But remember, from here on we can use the quadratic formula because it'll give you the same answer. So if you put everything into your calculator, 1 minus 4 and 4, you should get x equals 2. X equals 2. Okay, so now let's write that over here. equals 2. And now y, okay, we need to substitute y. Remember, we're not substituting y into this equation. That's wrong because that's our final equation. We need to substitute y into either the line or the curve. Let's put in the line because it's easier. We know we simplified the line to say y equals 5 minus x squared. Sorry, that's the curve. Simplified the line to say y equals 9 minus 4x. So let's just put our x value 2 into this equation. So y equals 9 minus 4 into 2. So if you put that in your calculator or just do it mentally, you get 1. So our coordinates are x is 2 and y is 1. And that's it for today. That's the end of the paper. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, Varshini, and thank you everyone for listening to this video. We hope you found it helpful in helping you to tackle this paper effectively. So don't forget to hit subscribe to stay tuned for more episodes coming in the way. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.